So we all know who Michael Jackson is. The man so famous that entire cities went into pandemonium whenever he arrived. A performer who changed music forever, whose life became one of the most controversial stories in entertainment history. To millions, he was a genius, but to others, he became impossible to defend. But no matter where you stand, Michael Jackson has one of the most fascinating, tragic, and complicated stories ever told to the world. Because behind the bright, glittering stage lights was a man who spent his entire life trapped inside fame. Michael Joseph Jackson was born to his parents, Catherine and Joe Jackson, in the small town of Gary, Indiana on August 29, 1958. At the time, Gary was a rough steel town, where working-class families struggled, and the Jackson family was no exception. Michael grew up on 2300 Jackson Street, which was a small 672 square foot house, and he grew up in this house with 9 siblings. And inside the Jackson household, life revolved around one thing: music. His father, Joe Jackson, was once in a band himself, the Falcons. Started by his brother Luther, Joe played blues guitar until eventually the band collapsed due to small growth. But with Joe's knowledge of music, he believed that his sons could be stars. But his methods of getting them to stardom were often abusive and incredibly strict.
And so we, not only were we practicing, we were nervous rehearsing, because he sat in a chair and he had this bell in his hand. And if you didn't do it the right way, he would tear you up.
Rehearsals lasted for hours and mistakes were punished harshly, routinely hitting Michael for a missed note or step. He even abused Michael psychologically, making fun of his looks and specifically his nose.
I wouldn't want to look in the mirror.
Really?
And my father teased me, and I just hated it. I cried every day because of it.
Your father would tease you about your
Yes,
pimples?
he would tell me I'm ugly.
Your father would say
Yes,
that?
he would.
Michael would later describe being terrified to disappoint his father because of these things.
There's been times when he'd come to see me and I would get sick.
Really?
I'd start to regurgitate.
As a child or as an adult?
Both.
Both.
But despite the pressure, Michael's talent was undeniable. Even as a child, his rhythm, stage presence, and just overall musical talent even blew adults out of the water. By age 5, he had become the lead singer for the Jackson 5, a band solely composed of brothers. And once audiences saw him, everything changed. He wasn't just talented for a young child, he was just talented. Soon after, the group signed with Motown Records, and almost overnight they exploded into stardom. Songs like I Want You Back, ABC, The Love You Save, and even Christmas songs like Santa Claus Is Coming to Town became massive hits. Fans screamed for Michael everywhere he went. But while the world saw joy and success, Michael later described feeling lonely, isolated, and emotionally exhausted. Other children were playing outside while Michael tirelessly rehearsed.
And I'd record for hours and hours till it's time to go to sleep. And I remember going to the recording studio. There was a park across the street, and I'd see all the children playing, and they'd be rooting and making noise, and I would cry. It'd make me sad that I would have to go and work instead.
And other children went to school dances while Michael performed to fully sold-out audiences. And in a lot of ways, the pressures of fame began to shape Michael before he even really knew what fame was. As Michael started to enter adulthood, he wanted to be something more. He didn't want to just be known as the kid from the Jackson 5. He wanted artistic control. He wanted to be a solo act. And in 1979, everything changed. Michael released his first major solo album, Off the Wall. Produced by Quincy Jones, the album mixed disco, funk, pop, and soul into something revolutionary. Songs like Don't Stop Till You Get Enough and Rock With You turned Michael Jackson into a star in his own right. But despite the success, Michael still felt underestimated. He felt like the music industry didn't fully respect black artists at the time, especially on MTV, which at the time heavily favored white rock musicians. Michael wanted to break that barrier completely. And then came the album that changed the world. In 1982, Michael Jackson released Thriller, and pop culture has never been the same since. The album became a phenomenon unlike anything the music industry had ever seen, becoming the album with the most sales of all time. Not just because of the songs, but because Michael turned music into a spectacle. Every performance became an event, and every video became cinematic. And suddenly, MTV couldn't just ignore him anymore. The video for Billie Jean became one of the first videos by a black artist to receive heavy rotation on MTV. Then came songs like Beat It and the title song Thriller. And everything changed. Michael made everything entertaining, which made it super easy to be involved in. For example, the video for Thriller is more of a small film than it is a music video. Then on March 25th, 1983, during a televised Motown performance, Michael Jackson debuted the moonwalk during his hit song Billie Jean. One move. That's all it took. The arena exploded. The world had never seen anything like it. I mean, have you ever watched the video? Look at the way that he's moving. Suddenly, Michael Jackson wasn't just a musician. He was becoming more mythology than man at this point. At his peak, his fame became almost incomprehensible. And unlike a lot of stars, Michael's fame wasn't just limited to one country. He was globally admired. Africa, South America, North America, Europe, Asia, you name it, They knew who he was, and they loved him. Michael Jackson became arguably the most recognizable person on Earth, and maybe even ever. And yet, as his fame grew larger, Michael himself seemed to be more isolated. The 80s and 90s transformed Michael into something beyond human in the eyes of the public. But that level of fame came with very harsh consequences. The media became obsessed with every single little detail of his life. His appearance changed dramatically over the years, with the pigmentation disorder that changed his skin color.
This is the situation. I have a skin disorder that destroys the pigmentation of the skin. It's something that I cannot help, okay? But when people make up stories that I don't want to be who I am, it hurts me.
In many plastic surgeries, we were losing who Michael truly was. Rumors spread constantly, and people mocked his face, his voice, and even his behaviors. But over time, public fascination became cruelty. Late-night comedians mocked him relentlessly. Tabloids treated him like more of a spectacle than a person. And during all of this drama, Michael created Neverland Ranch, a giant private estate in Los Alamos, California, filled with amusement park rides, animals, fantasy attractions, and even movie theaters. Michael described the ranch as being a place where he could reclaim the childhood that fame and his dad took from him. And honestly, the idea is deeply sad, because behind all the eccentricity was a man just chasing experiences that he never got to have as a child. But to many outsiders, Neverland seemed bizarre, and eventually, it became the center of one of the biggest scandals in entertainment history. In 1993, Michael faced accusations of child sex abuse. The first accusation came from the Chandler family, and specifically Jordan Chandler, who was their 13-year-old son at the time. The accusations started with Evan Chandler, Jordan's dad, who made claims that Jordan accused Michael of sexually abusing him while under sedation. Now, it is believed by some that Evan pressured Jordan into saying these things while under the influence of sodium amytal, which is often called truth serum, because, in Evan's mind, if Jordan says these things, it can mean a large paycheck for the family. Jordan's parents, June and Evan Chandler, were divorced and constantly argued about Jordan and Michael's relationship. And June, who had noticeably spent more time around Michael, did not suspect him of sexual abuse. But nevertheless, the accusations came out and shocked the entire world.
Many disgusting statements made recently concerning allegations of improper conduct on my part. These statements about me are totally false. I am not guilty of these allegations.
And even without proof, the damage was immense.
I ask all of you to wait and hear the truth before you label or condemn me. Don't treat me like a criminal, because I am innocent.
Michael, of course, denied everything. The case was settled outside of court, with Michael almost being forced against his will to pay a large check of $23 million to the case. But his reputation was thrown out the window. For the first time in his career, many people began viewing him differently, and the media frenzy became even more nonstop. Every interview, every appearance, everything was on national news. Then in the early 2000s, more allegations surfaced with Gavin Arvizo. He was accused to have given Gavin alcohol and sexually abusing him at Neverland Ranch. This led to his criminal trial in 2005, which is likely the most infamous celebrity trial since O.J. Simpson. News helicopters were following his car, fans and protesters were outside the court daily, and every single second of this criminal case was on the news. Michael, again, denied every accusation. And eventually, Michael was found not guilty on all counts. Legally, he walked free, but culturally, his image was severely damaged. And even after his death, documentaries like Leaving Neverland reignited global debate. To this day, discussions about Michael Jackson remain deeply divisive. Some believe he was unfairly targeted because of his fame and unusual lifestyle. Others believe the accusations revealed dark, disturbing truths about who Michael truly was. And for many people, separating Michael Jackson the artist and Michael Jackson the man is very hard. By the late 2000s, Michael Jackson appeared increasingly fragile. Financial issues piled up, he became more and more isolated from the public. Reports of prescription drug dependency became more serious, yet despite everything, fans still loved him. And in 2009, Michael announced a massive comeback series called This Is It. The demand was overwhelming. Tickets sold incredibly fast, because everybody thought that they were going to see one more legendary chapter of Michael Jackson. But behind the scenes, reports noted that Michael seemed physically and emotionally exhausted. The pressure was very intense. And then on June 25th, 2009, the entire world stopped. Every news station imaginable read the same words: Michael Jackson, dead at age 50. The cause ruled acute propofol intoxication. Social media crashed because of the traffic. Fans gathered outside hospitals, homes, and landmarks across the world. For a lot of people, it felt unreal. The most famous entertainer ever was suddenly gone. And with this came a lot of conspiracies as well. Jackson had been administered a series of sedatives. These were given to him by his personal physician, Dr. Conrad Murray. Dr. Murray later administered a dose of propofol, a potent hospital-grade general anesthetic. After Jackson had fallen asleep, Dr. Murray left his side for a short period. Upon returning, he found Jackson unresponsive and not breathing. And instead of immediately calling 911, it took Dr. Murray over an hour to have one of Jackson's security guards call 911. Paramedics arrived and transported Jackson to the UCLA Medical Center, where doctors relentlessly attempted to revive him. Jackson was pronounced dead at 2:26 p.m. The Los Angeles County coroner's autopsy report determined that the level of propofol found in the system was enough to administer a general surgery. Authorities noted that Dr. Murray was giving him the drug in a residential setting without emergency breathing equipment, ruling this a homicide. Michael was again involved in a large trial, even after he had died. Dr. Conrad Murray was convicted of involuntary manslaughter in November of 2011. Prosecutors successfully argued that Murray was acting in gross negligence by giving Michael this drug in an unsafe environment. Murray was sentenced to 4 years in prison. Of that, he only served 2, being released in 2013 for good behavior. But even now, years after his death, Michael Jackson's influence remains everywhere. Modern pop performances, stage choreography, music videos, the whole 9 yards. Artists across all genres still borrow from what Michael created decades ago. Albums like Thriller are still considered benchmarks of pop excellence. And even recently, people have been dressing up like Michael and waiting in long movie theater lines just to watch his new biography, Michael. The movie has grossed heights of almost $800 million at the time of this recording, but his legacy remains complicated. For some, Michael represents artistic genius at its absolute peak. For others, the allegations changed forever how his work is viewed. And maybe that complexity is why people still talk about him. Because Michael Jackson's story wasn't just about fame. It's about the story of what happens whenever a human becomes larger than life itself. A child turned into a product, and then an artist turned into a mythology. And a man who spent his entire life searching for peace while the world watched his every step. Michael Jackson gave the world unforgettable performances, unforgettable memories, and unforgettable controversies. But underneath all of it was someone who never had the chance to just simply be a normal human being. And even decades later, the world is still trying to determine who really is Michael Jackson.